Every road you've driven on, every bridge you've crossed, every skyscraper that touches the clouds, started as nothing more than a drawing on someone's desk, before the first brick was laid, before the first truck arrived. One civil engineer had to make thousands of decisions. A single wrong measurement can delay an entire project. A single design mistake can cost millions of dollars, and one overlooked detail can put hundreds of lives at risk. Today, you're about to experience every stage of a civil engineer's career, from a nervous university student who can't even set up a surveying instrument, to the chief engineer, trusted with projects that reshape entire cities. Each promotion brings more responsibility, harder decisions, bigger consequences, and lessons no classroom can ever teach. This is your life. As every civil engineer, rank Level 1, the civil engineering student. Your journey begins on the first day of university. You imagine yourself designing massive bridges and record-breaking skyscrapers. Reality is very different. Instead of building anything, you're sitting in a classroom filled with equations that seem impossible to understand. Statics, engineering drawing, surveying, material science. Every subject feels like learning a completely new language. A few weeks later, your professor hands your group a total station. Your task sounds simple. Measure the elevation across a small section of campus. After 40 minutes of work, nothing makes sense. Every reading is different. Your group blames the equipment. The professor quietly walks over, adjusts the tripod by less than an inch, and suddenly, every measurement becomes accurate. That moment changes your mindset. Engineering isn't about guessing, it's about precision. Then comes concrete lab. You mix cement, sand, gravel, and water for the first time. Your concrete fails the slump test. The next sample is too dry. The third finally passes. You begin realizing that engineering isn't only calculations, it's experience, it's patience. By your final year, your team is assigned its biggest challenge yet. Design a 5-story office building. Columns, beams, foundations, parking, drainage. Everything must work together. Every design review reveals another mistake. A beam is overloaded. A staircase doesn't meet regulations. A drainage slope is incorrect. Week after week, you improve the design until your professor finally says, "This project could actually be built." Graduation arrives. Your family celebrates. Everyone calls you an engineer. But walking out of the university gates, you already know the truth. The real learning starts now. Level 2, the graduate engineer. Your first job begins at a busy engineering consultancy. Everything feels faster than university. Phones ring constantly. Meetings happen every hour. Deadlines never stop. On your very first morning, your manager places a stack of structural drawings on your desk. Check these before lunch. You confidently begin reviewing them. 2 hours later, your manager returns. Within seconds, he circles 5 mistakes you completely missed. Missing dimensions, incorrect reinforcement spacing, a beam connected to the wrong column. You suddenly realize how much responsibility every drawing carries. Weeks later, you're sent to your first construction site. Seeing the project in real life is completely different from looking at drawings. Tower cranes swing overhead. Excavators move thousands of tons of earth. Hundreds of workers depend on clear instructions. Then the contractor asks you a simple question. Can we move this column half a meter to save time? You hesitate. Half a meter doesn't sound like much, but after checking the drawings, you discover that moving it would affect the entire structural frame above. One small change would create problems on every floor. For the first time, you understand why civil engineers never make decisions based on instinct. Every answer must be backed by calculations. Every decision affects someone else. And every day, you leave work knowing just a little more than yesterday. Level 3, the site. Engineer, 3 years into your career. You're finally trusted to manage your own construction site. Your day starts before sunrise. By 6:30 a.m., workers are already waiting. Concrete trucks are arriving. Steel deliveries are being unloaded. Everyone expects instructions from you. At first, everything goes according to plan. Then, your surveyor calls. The foundation grid doesn't match the drawings. You rush over. One set of anchor bolts has been installed nearly 40 millimeters off position. It doesn't sound like much, but if the steel columns arrive tomorrow, nothing will fit. Construction stops. The contractor complains that every hour of delay costs thousands of dollars. The client wants answers. Instead of panicking, you gather the survey team, structural engineer, and contractor. After checking every measurement, you redesign the base plate connection without affecting the building's safety. Work resumes before sunset. That evening you realize something important. Being a site engineer isn't about preventing every problem. It's about staying calm when everyone else is losing theirs. Level 4. The project engineer. 5 years into your career, you're no longer responsible for one section of a project. You're responsible for the entire project. Schedules, budgets, materials, contractors, client meetings. Every decision passes through you. One morning, excavation begins for a new commercial complex. Everything looks perfect, until the excavation crew uncovers an old underground water pipeline that doesn't exist on any official map. The foundation can't continue. Moving the pipeline will cost weeks. Leaving it in place isn't an option. The client starts worrying about delays. The contractor wants immediate instructions. Within hours, you organize an emergency meeting. Architects, structural engineers, utility engineers, surveyors. Together, you redesign part of the foundation to avoid the pipeline while keeping the building structurally safe. Construction restarts 2 days later. The client never sees the panic behind the scenes. But you do. That's when you understand. Great project engineers aren't remembered because everything goes perfectly. They're remembered because they know how to recover when nothing does. Level 5. The senior engineer. Almost 10 years have passed. Now you're the person reviewing everyone else's work. Young engineers arrive at your desk with questions you once asked yourself. One afternoon, a junior engineer proudly presents the structural design for a new hospital. Everything looks good until one number catches your attention. A transfer beam supporting 2 upper floors seems slightly undersized. You run the calculations again. Then a third time, the junior engineer forgot to include one critical load combination. Had construction continued, the beam would have carried far more weight than it was designed for. You call the engineer into your office. He expects criticism. Instead, you explain exactly where the mistake happened and how to avoid it in the future. His relief reminds you of your first mentor years ago. That's when you realize your biggest responsibility isn't designing buildings anymore. It's developing engineers who will someday replace you. The strongest structures aren't always made of concrete and steel. Sometimes they're built through knowledge passed from one engineer to the next. Level 6. The engineering manager. 15 years into your career. Your desk is no longer covered with calculations. It's covered with project schedules, budgets, contracts, and meeting requests. You now lead a team of engineers working on multiple projects at once. Every morning starts with a different problem. One project is behind schedule because heavy rain delayed construction. Another is over budget after steel prices suddenly increased. A third has a client requesting major design changes only weeks before construction begins. Everyone wants answers. Everyone comes to you. One afternoon, 2 contractors argue over who's responsible for a costly mistake. Each blames the other. Instead of taking sides, you review the drawings, inspection reports, and site photos. The truth becomes clear. Neither contractor caused the problem. It started with a small communication error weeks earlier. A mistake no one noticed. You bring everyone together, explain the solution, and keep the project moving. That day, you learn management isn't about giving orders. It's about keeping talented people moving in the same direction. Because even the best engineers can't build anything if the team falls apart. Level 7. The Director of Engineering. 20 years have passed. The projects you oversee are no longer single buildings. They're entire transportation networks, hospitals, airports, water treatment plants. Thousands of people will use them every single day. Before construction begins, every major decision lands on your desk. You review designs prepared by dozens of engineers. Not because you don't trust them, but because one missed detail could affect an entire city. Then comes your biggest challenge, a new highway interchange designed to reduce traffic for nearly 500,000 people. The first proposal is far over budget. The second creates environmental concerns. The third solves both problems. After months of planning, meetings, and redesigns, construction finally begins. Years later, traffic flows smoothly through the interchange every morning. Most drivers never wonder who designed it. They simply expect it to work. And that's enough, because the greatest engineering success isn't recognition. It's creating something so reliable that people never have to think about it. Level 8. The Chief Engineer, 25 years after your first day at university. You walk through a construction site, one last time. Young engineers surround you. They ask the same questions you once asked your mentor. You smile, because you've stood exactly where they are now. You remember struggling to read your first blueprint. You remember failing your first concrete test. You remember the sleepless nights, the impossible deadlines, the difficult decisions, and the projects that almost didn't succeed. Now those projects have become part of everyday life. Families cross bridges you helped design. Children study inside schools your team engineered. Hospitals save lives inside buildings you approved. Entire communities depend on infrastructure that started as simple sketches on paper. People may never know your name, but they'll trust your work every single day without realizing it. And maybe that's the greatest achievement any civil engineer could ever ask for. Ending. Looking back, you realize civil engineering was never just about concrete, steel, or calculations. It was about solving problems that most people never notice, turning empty land into thriving communities, creating structures that stand for generations, protecting lives through careful planning and precise decisions. Every rank taught you something different. As a student, you learned the fundamentals. As a site engineer, you learned responsibility. As a project engineer, you learned leadership. As a manager, you learned how to lead people. And as the chief engineer, you discovered that your greatest legacy isn't the buildings you leave behind. It's the engineers you inspire to build the future after you. Because long after you're gone, your work will still be standing. Quietly supporting millions of lives, one foundation at a time.